Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. I have very little self-promote until maybe the end of the video, but we have 6 albums to go through, so I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible, while explaining as much as I can. So let's go. We begin with The Luke Estate and what I believe is their second album, More Than This. This is a band I heard about via the magic of YouTube ads, and they're a sort of indie rock group from England. They're more alternative rock leaning, and they actually go quite hard here. I'm giving this album a B+. I thought it was actually some really solid indie rock. We've had some good, indie leaning stuff this year, and some really good, more traditionally leaning hard rock, especially in 2023, almost said 2021 for some reason. That was 2 years ago. But yeah, no, this was actually some really good stuff. I quite like the instrumentation. The lyricism does bounce between quite a few subjects quite nicely, mostly dealing with people coming out of the pandemic and the fallout of it, because we're still very much sort of in that era, and it really disturbs me that was 3 years ago and then we're still not done with it. Fucking hell, it's a long ass title fight, dudes. But yeah, no, there was some really good aspects to it. I like the performance work. I thought the production was very clean and very organic. I like how it paid a lot of attention to the guitar work, especially. I wish there were more solos, and the structuring is really nice too. It's really good, sort of heavier than you'd think, almost a punk rock vibe to the alt indie stylings of the album, so I recommend giving it a shot. I liked a lot more of it than I thought I would. It took a couple of listens for it to settle with me fully, but yeah, no, definitely worth your time if you can find it. Next we have a debut, Meet Me at the Altar, with their first ever full album, Past, Present, Future. This is a band I've heard about through YouTube ads, but I didn't really listen to them for a while because I was like, hey, relatively charming pop punk with all women of colour, which is a good thing. The album only gets a B- though, because the album, as it does have its charm, don't get me wrong, but it's not exactly the most unique pop punk debut I've ever heard. Its production saves a lot of it, as do the performances. The lyricism is a little bit basic and repetitive at times, as is the structuring. It's only half an hour long, so it's not really something that's going to take up a whole lot of your time. But it is, some of the instrumentation is quite punchy. I quite like the performances of the band members as well. It does have some strong aspects going for it, but I think that they needed a bit more time to cook this one. But it's just short, fun pop punk at the end of the day. I think that was the album's goal, pretty much, and it's got that sort of nostalgic vibe to it. So, I don't know why I did that for nostalgic vibe. So if you like the nostalgic vibe of pop punk, like that sort of mid-2000s era stuff, like the era I grew up in and what got me to rock music in the first place, really. Give this one a go. I liked more of it. I did like quite a bit of it. I still think there's some fine-tuning that needs to be done, but yeah, it's a really solid debut, and I do have hope for what they drop next. Next we go to Periphery with their 7th album, Periphery 5, yeah, try and figure that out. Djent is not a genre. So A+, I think that's kind of obvious. Periphery is one of my favourite prog metal bands because they're a prog metal band that doesn't waste your fucking time, even though the album is an hour and 10 minutes long. One of the longest albums I've covered all year. In terms of its instrumentation, it's as crushing as you would expect, as complex as you would expect, with the drumming especially being done well. The performance is great. Matt Halpern, great drummer. All 3 guitarists fantastic. Spencer Taylor, still one of my favourite metal vocalists in the modern day. I fucking love his range. It's ridiculous how well he goes. It's also very brilliantly produced and is released on the band's own label of 3 Dot Recordings, referencing the 3 Dot logo that they have. Very intelligent, see what they did there. Structure-wise, it is, again, a bit long, but it's got so many fun twists and so many fun things going for it. It creates a very, very fun structure. Surprisingly fun metal album, but then again, Periphery have always been a band that haven't really taken themselves all that seriously, which is remarkable considering the lyricism, mostly theming on mental health and suicidal depression. Oh man, but it's not a tonal whiplash either. They actually stick to the serious tone quite well, and again, I think that's due to Spencer Satella's naturally charismatic delivery. He's fucking brilliant. Yeah, this is just a really good band, production-wise, structure-wise, lyrically-wise, instrumentation-wise. Periphery are fucking awesome. They're one of the premier prog metal bands for a reason. Go check this one out. It's pretty goddamn sick. Next is another metal-leaning band that have been around for a while, more of a comedy glam metal band. It's Steel Panther with their new album On The Prowl, my first Steel Panther album. And I'm giving this one a B because the thing is about Steel Panther, right? You're not going to get much variety from them. But one thing that they've always had going for them is that they can fucking play, especially Satchel. He's a brilliant guitarist. But if you're looking for much in terms of the lyrics, you're really only going to find a bunch of dick jokes, sex jokes, not having any sex jokes, and some references to past metal, but it is mostly just the penises. It's all a bit the penises and the vaginas and the cumies. But yeah, it still gets a B anyway because It's dumb. It's very lowbrow, and I couldn't stop fucking laughing. Like, just read any of the lyrics. They're a bit gross. It's Steel Panther. You kind of expect that from them. They're not exactly the most subtle band, but they spit in subtlety's face. Actually, that's a bad way to term it. That's probably something they'd be into, knowing the dirty bastards that they are. Yeah, no, lyrically, yeah, it's about the same as you'd expect. Instrumentally, it's really good. Production-wise, it's great too, and performance-wise too. Michael Starr is a really good vocalist, but again, Satchel is the highlight, I think. Well, it's my first Steel Panther album, but, from other past Steel Panther stuff I've heard, is really good guitar. Structure-wise, it does drag a tiny bit. It doesn't really vary too much. It is a bit repetitive because of it mostly just being a bunch of sex jokes. But if you like that and you just want something stupid that's going to put a smile on your face, definitely recommend giving this one a go. I couldn't stop laughing at it. It's one of the funniest albums I think I've heard, so yeah, definitely worth a try. Next, we have Story of the Year with their 6th album, I believe, Tear Me to Pieces. So this is a very unique one because this year, this September, it's the 20th anniversary of their debut, Page Avenue, which is why the album's cover looks a bit like it echoes the Page Avenue cover. And I'm giving this one also an A+. Probably my favourite album of the past weekend. This is one that did take a couple of listens for me, much like Periphery's album did too. This is a reason why Story of the Year, one of the best ever, like, American emo, pop-punky, post-hardcore bands to have ever done it. This is more of a melodic hardcore vibe, much like their last album, Waltz, was back in 2017. Also, God, it's been 6 years since that album. And that album's great too. Yeah, I really love this one as well. It's a very short one, I will admit. It's only 33 minutes long, around there. But it's still got so much going for it. There's a lot of variety to it. There's a lot of heaviness. Probably one of the band's heavier releases. I did a backtracking episode about the band, so yeah, I'm familiar enough with their sound, and I quite like most of the stuff they do. Performance-wise, all fantastic. Dan Marcel is a really good vocalist. I don't care what anyone says. I think he's quite underrated. I really like I've already gone through his structuring. Pacing's quite nice. Production's really good too. And ultimately, again, it's just a nostalgia album. But it's a really good nostalgic album. There's amazing instrumentation. I do wish there were a few more, maybe solos, but the riffs we get are really nice and heavy and big and beefy. The bass works really great too for that, as is the drumming. And I like the lyricism as well. It does have sort of nostalgia things, but as well as like showing growth and maturity because the band members becoming, husbands and fathers in the past 6 years and things like that. So, yeah, it's just really nice to have that sense of maturity going in with pop punk bands, and it does inform a lot of the music quite well. So, yeah, I really love this album. Definitely worth a go, and if you're even vaguely familiar with Story of the Year, there's a reason they've been around as long as they have, even if you ignore the breakup that they had in the middle of the 2010s, or whenever the hell that was. So, again, give this one a spin. I like quite a lot of it. And finally, we end with Suicide Silence, that's the band name, and their album, Remember You Must Die. And now, of this episode, right, I listened to almost all these albums back at least once, except for Steel Panthers. I will point that out. For those that don't know, Suicide Silence are a deathcore bands. And I listened back to this one, and I've listened back to it like a couple of times, and nothing sticks with it. I'm giving it a C+, because the performances are great. I like some of the lyrics, even if they can come across a bit try-hard. And I think the instrumentation is brutal and heavy, but it's very simple, and it doesn't really change much. I don't know, I guess I was spoiled by last year having albums like, Pain Remains by Lorna Shore, Ashes Lie Still by Inchested, and fucking Elegy by Shadow of Intent, easily being actually also Erebos by Venom Prison as well. I was spoiled by how good death-leaning metal should sound, and this album does not stack up to those at all, but it's also not terrible. I just can't remember anything about it, is the weird thing. Like, I remember it's brutal and heavy. That's kind of about it. The performances are quite good. But yeah, no, not all of it really stuck with my brain. I found it to be pretty average. And this, you have to remember, I'm not a huge Suicide Silence fan. I didn't get into them when Mitch was around, although I would like to rectify that at some point. By listening to their old stuff when Mitch was still alive, may he rest in peace. And the only other album I listened to by Suicide Silence was the one before this, back in 2020, and I sort of like that one. This one, I don't know. My overall feeling towards it was but if you want to give it a spin for yourself, I won't stop you. Just keep in mind that it's not the best or even most unique deathcore album that you've ever heard, so again, keep that in your head when listening to it. And that will about do it. I will do the rankings first before I do anything else for the video. So from lowest to highest, we have Suicide Silence with Remember You Must Die, Mean Beat the Altar with Past, Present, Future, Steel Panther with On the Prowl, The Luke State with More Than This, Periphery with Periphery 5, Gender's Not Genre, and Story of the Year, Tear Me to Pieces, although you could easily interchange those top two depending on which style you're more of a fan of, as to what's next for me. Tomorrow night, the return show of PPW vs APW. That's going to be good. And then on Saturday night and Sunday night, more streaming Hi-Fi Rush of the Let's Play. I might finish the Let's Play. Well, I'll finish the recording. I still have the editing to do, although I have been catching up on that. So, yeah, that's good. And then, possibly Sunday for the night review. I don't really know. All I know is that this was a lot of albums to go through, and again, give all of these at least one go. And with Suicide Silence's album, personally, don't give it more than one go because, you know, there's probably not a lot that's going to stick in your head. So, yeah, that'll play it do. That was a very awkward thing. So, we'll just go to the outro, which is now, as always, thank you for watching, you're awesome, bye-bye.